Hi friends, welcome to the Mastermind Moments podcast.
Hosted by your pals, Josh and Sasha.
Join us during our weekly mastermind as we collaborate on how to make the most out of our lives.
Not only are we going to mastermind our careers, we're going to work on all areas of life together.
Let's do it. Listen in as we make the most of our mastermind moments.
Hi, hello. Welcome to an episode of the Mastermind Moments podcast. This week we recorded with Josh's sister, Bella, who's also a very close friend of mine. And we lost the last 10 minutes or so of her audio, but she left us a little voice recording with some of the most profound things that she said at the end of the episode. So I'll insert that at the end of the episode. So apologies that it ends in a little bit of an abrupt manner. But, technical difficulties, that's a part of starting a business and starting a podcast. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode. Hello, hi.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm definitely not waking up.
Yeah, I
Like
literally said to
protein
Sasha just
coffee.
now, isn't it like 11 a.m. in LA?
In my defense, it's Sunday.
Fair. That's totally
But
fair.
in your defense, you are also 26 years old.
What's wrong with sleeping until 11 on a Sunday, though?
I don't know. I wouldn't do it personally.
I think Josh forgets that I grew up with him.
Yeah. Anyway, for the listeners, if you haven't gauged by the way that I talk to Bella, she is my sister.
And she's my pal, and we talk about the fact that Bella and I were actually friends first, which is so funny to me, but we were, which is so wild.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Sasha was my dorm mate.
Yeah. Gills is like the Tony Robbins summer camp we went to, which is literally what I don't think we've had a guest on here that hasn't been from Gills, which
Interesting.
yeah, that's our network, our community. It's fun to catch up with our pals and see what's
Great
happening.
guests. Then.
Listen, the conversations are always top notch. Before we get into it, let's spin a wheel. Mental health. How do you prioritize mental health in your daily life? What do you guys think?
You want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
Go,
You
Bella.
What's important is to treat your mental health like your physical health. People don't do that. I made a short film about this. It came out last year called Unseen, where I basically had all these characters and I reversed mental and physical health, like in the way that so I had characters speak to each other in the way that people speak to people with illness, but they had physical problems instead. So I flipped it just to show how insensitive people can be, and mental and physical health are the same, essentially. And I'm not very good at prioritizing my mental health in the way that I prioritize my physical health. But I think it's important to look at it that way.
I mean, it's so interesting that you're so aware of it, especially considering the fact you made a short film, but then don't prioritize it at all. That's interesting because it's like awareness, but without any. Is there like no action, or what? Do you do any kind of practice, or you just kind of like fall behind on it a bit?
The thing is, I talk to Caesar, my boyfriend, for the listeners, about this all the time because I'm like, I need to start actually doing something about my grief, for instance. Like I experienced really bad grief from the loss of someone, and I was like, I actually need to start doing grief counseling, and I just have been kicking it down the road because we think, oh, that takes time, and that's time I could be, especially when I'm an actress, I'm like, oh, there's so much I could be doing with that time. I could be sending emails, because you always feel like you should be doing something when you're an actress, and instead of focusing on actually fixing what's going on inside my head. But I actually officially, as of this weekend, have a therapist. So yay.
Okay, hell yeah.
Finally signed up for therapy.
Yeah, grief is something we've been chatting about a lot actually on the pod, and you've come up in that conversation because obviously like grief is something we've always talked about it in terms of like just how everyone's managing it, and Josh always says that you've kind of like been going through it with grief, and I have too, and it's something you and I have discussed quite a lot, but it's like a different type of
like a mental challenge than a regular like mental health disorder or something. Like it's a different type in the same way that there are a bunch of different types for it, but it's just something that's such a huge part of life that I feel like is only now coming into the conversation more and more. But it's such a big part of life, and it's such a big part of mental health as well, but it's just not something that goes away. You just like learn how to deal with it, really. But so therapy
Well,
is what you
yeah,
think.
that's exactly it. My mum always says that grief is you get a hole in your life. Imagine your life is a garden, and then suddenly one day there's a massive gaping hole in that garden. But eventually, over time, the hole is still there, but new things start to grow around it. And I just thought that was a really nice analogy for it because it's true. Grief is always there, but you learn different ways to deal with it. And I've definitely just been trying to learn different ways to deal with it. And one of the things was I initially treated my grief like I treated breakups. I was like, la la la, not even going to think about this person, not going to look at pictures of this person. But it's actually not a breakup, and it's someone that you truly loved who was a great person in your life. And it is important that you look at pictures of them and videos of them and recordings of them. And that's something that I've been avoiding since losing my granddad. And it's really, really hard to do that because every time I look at pictures of him, I just start crying. But recently I forced myself to do it because I suddenly thought that's actually really sad, because if I was able to speak to him and I was able to say, hey, granddad, I can't look at any pictures of you, that would make him really upset. And I think if I ever died and people couldn't ever talk about me or look at pictures of me, it would kill me. And so it is so important to acknowledge the fact that, yes, that hole is there and it's okay to be upset. And actually, I think it's part of the healing process to let yourself be upset.
Yeah, it's the different stages of grief, isn't it? And you have to go through all of those different stages, and you go through the different stages at different points in your life as well. And as you say, they come and go. And an interesting point that I forget which one of you said it, I think it was Sasha just now, about how grief, it never really goes. It's always there in the background, even if you confront it head on, like you are starting to, it seems, Bella. Even if you confront it head on, it's still there and it's still going to rear itself in the future. But I think something interesting that we've been talking about, Sasha and I, recently, is about the different types of grief. And I think the type of grief that we were talking about, that we've both been experiencing, is relationship grief and romantic relationship grief. But there's so many different types, because you could be grieving the loss of a friend just from your life, not in the fact that they're dead. And I guess my question is, because it's off topic from the original question, but does that type of grief ever go? Because you talked, Bella, about with relationships and breakups, how you just covered your ears and tried to move on.
Yeah.
But eventually we get over those breakups and over those kind of situations. Personally, my grief at the moment is Savita is moving to India, and that's going to be a major, major part of my life gone. A huge hole in my life that is going to be gone for a good however long, hopefully not particularly long. And then Sasha went through a very heavy breakup a year or so ago, and then there's been various themes of grief throughout this past year with other people.
Yeah.
Is that a kind of grief that you ever really get over?
I think that's a really interesting question. But I was thinking about it as you were talking about it, and I think there is a big difference, because what you've just talked about are like 4 different kinds of grief. And when it's a breakup, yeah, it is the same process that you go through the same stages to get over it. But I think that there is a massive difference, because I think when it comes to relationships, that isn't, when you think of the garden that is your life, you don't have that hole that just stays there in the way that it does when you lose someone. I think the hole is there when you break up with someone, but you end up filling it in rather than having stuff grow around it. And that's the difference when it's a breakup.
That's actually such a good comparison.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. It's something that I've been thinking about as well, like the different types of grief. I don't think this would be as relevant to you, Bella, but I read the book called Soul Broken Ambiguous Grief, about grief that happens when the person doesn't necessarily die, and like what that looks like because it's not necessarily, because the grief I went through I am going through is not necessarily like someone didn't die, but it's been grief of relationships, friendship, romantic, otherwise, grief of leaving lives or leaving places or situations where I felt like very aligned and whole and happy, just ripping myself from different lives very consistently. And I have experienced my grandma passed, must have been maybe like 2 years ago at this point. Yeah, 2 years ago at this point. And that was a different type of grief. And I think you're completely right. Like, it's the difference between like grief of, it's like an actually amazing analogy. I had never even thought about it that way. Grief of someone who dies is a hole that you just grow around it. But the grief of someone or something that you'll eventually replace it, that's a friend or a life or a relationship or whatever, the hole does get filled in, but it's a different filling. Like, you can tell that the ground is uneven. Like, it's a different color of grass. It's not quite the same, and it looks different. It looks different, but it's still filled in. So I think and the scars are there, but it's not quite a hole. And I think that's a really interesting distinction there, actually, that I had never really thought about before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting. It feels very weird having a serious conversation with Bella. I knew this was going to feel really weird because Bella and I just have this kind of like completely non-serious relationship. I think a classic brother-sister relationship. I don't think I've ever had an emotional conversation with Bella.
I don't think I've had very silly conversations with both of you, but like, I feel like the basis of my relationship with both of you are having like very deep talks. Like,
deep conversations.
I don't know what it's like to have small talk with either of you, like, ever.
No, I feel like that's my relationship with most skills people. I think that's the foundation of our relationship. I think the only two people I can think of who I've never had that kind of relationship with are probably Matt Brunke, who we had on here, and Jake. Both of those were completely non-serious relationships.
Fair. Yeah.
Even when Josh was once telling me that he was breaking up with someone, it wasn't even serious then. Like, he came into my room and he was like, bam. And he's just started like hysterically laughing, and I was like,
oh my
breaking
God,
up with blah blah. I'm not going to say the name. And he's like, how did you know? I don't know. Sibling telepathy. I don't know.
Okay, wait. It opens up so much for me because I have so many questions. Like, I find sibling relationships and interactions so interesting because I don't have any. So I'm like, oh, it's like, in some ways I've always wanted a sibling. That's a total fucking lie. I'm just so curious. Do you feel like you guys and I feel like I know the answer because I've talked about this with both of you guys before, but as a unit, do you feel like, what's the dynamic in the relationship? And do you feel like it's like older brother, middle sister kind of dynamic, or like, how does it play out?
Josh and I have a very silly, goofy relationship. The thing is about me and Josh, though, is, in all honesty, until I was about 16 and he was 18, we had the world's worst relationship between any siblings. It was brilliant.
I wouldn't say it went that late, to be fair. I think it was...
because I remember it was Date with Destiny, really, that it changed, right?
Yeah, okay, that's a fair point. It was that.
And I was 16 when we did that, even though it feels like it's been so much longer, because obviously that was now 10 years ago. But we went from having this really terrible relationship to suddenly being best friends. And I remember our cousin Tasha was like, it's really weird. They never fight. It's really weird. And and I think ever since then it's really changed.
Wait, what happened at Date with Destiny? I
think Date with Destiny, so as Bella said, I thought it was after Gills, to be fair, which was when I was 14. And I think things definitely started to change at that point, because I came back a very different person, and then I dragged Bella along the next year, and she came back a very different person. So I think it started earlier on, but I think she's right in that there was a rocky period. I was a nightmare teenager. I've said this so many times. Like, as a kid, I was like, I'm so surprised my mum didn't have me put down. I was not a good kid.
I also wanted to have you put down.
Yeah, I think everyone wanted to have me put down. Unfortunately, I was not a good kid.
Josh, I've written, but I'm on a new draft of it right now, a film about exactly how bad he was, because that's how crazy the story is.
Oh yeah, we've talked about this script. We have talked about it.
You guys have talked about it.
No,
You
you
should
and
see the
I-
new draft.
No, Bella, you and I have talked about it, and I've talked about it with Josh.
Yeah.
It's-
Yeah.
But
So anyway,
simultaneously.
Oh
you
my
know, I was
God.
such a bad kid that there's been a movie written about it. But
Yeah.
I was a bad kid and I was terrible. And I was actually literally thinking about this the other day, and I don't want Bella to hear this, but I feel like she'll appreciate it. I was literally sitting down thinking the other day, I was like, I don't know why I just had these flashbacks to some of the shit that I used to say to my mom. And I was like, I was fucking evil. Like I was just like horrible to my mom. And I think you forget with your parents and your family that they have feelings. They have feelings just like you do, especially, I'm not talking about you, Bella, necessarily, but like our parents, because they're older and we forget that they are human beings as well. And now that I'm entering or very close to my 30s, sadly, I'm older, I think, than I was when my mum had me. And I don't give credit to the fact that she was like me. I'm very emotionally fragile and not got it all figured out. And none of us do for the most part. And we don't really realize that, which is, yeah, it's scary. And I was like, I must have really, really hurt my mum with some of the things that I used to say. And now we have, no, thanks. Now we have a really good relationship. Like it's the best it's ever been since I moved out a year and a half or so ago. And since I'm apparently a different person now anyway. But yeah, so that's an interesting point that
That is the thing with our parents. Like we look at them and we think that because when we're first born, they're so much older than us and bigger than us, and so we look at them like these other beings, and that they know the answer to everything. And I've definitely had to learn the hard way as a grown up myself, even though I literally don't feel like a grown up, but apparently I am. That your parents actually aren't always right, and so then it makes me think maybe they weren't always right when I was growing up, and you always look at them because you think they have the answer to everything. You think they know everything, and they're these other beings, and then, you realize, oh my God, I'm now the age that my mum was when she had a kid, her first kid. And then I'm years older than my mum was when she got married. And that's a crazy thing to think about. And she didn't know the answer to everything. And she, I think, really did try as our parent. And I think, especially with some of the things that happened with Josh, I think that she really stepped up and saved him. But I know that with me and her, we never hold that against Josh, because at the same time, on the flip side, Josh was young and Josh was a teenager and Josh was battling things internally. And so it's not, I think we both knew, especially my mom, that he would grow out of it and grow up one day and be who he is now. And my mom's definitely spoken to me about, and she's probably told you this too, Josh, about the fact that, she thinks that you know that now and that you're such a good son to her now. She definitely likes to rub it in my face that you're now the favorite child because apparently I've abandoned her.
I thought Cheska was the favorite now.
Wow.
Oh, Cheska's definitely not the favorite now.
No, I think maybe she will be one day.
Yeah. But Josh is definitely, of the three of us, like Josh has had the most growth in life. And I just think that Josh's story is such an incredible story. And that's why I'm so happy to write about it. And I tell people about it all the time. Josh doesn't even know how much I talk about him because he really has grown so much. And you would never think that you could grow that much after hearing what had happened to him and what he'd gone through.
Yeah.
But I did a degree in psychology. And so I think that was also something that was really good because I was able to really understand a lot more about not just Josh, but a few people.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that also being like helpful in like just understand, like finding an approach to understanding like a really troubled kid. Like he was your brother, but just to zoom out from it and be like, oh, okay, there's something else that's going on that's bigger than this.
And I'm sure, Josh, you've spoken on this podcast about what you've been going through internally, right? Because I don't want to say it if you haven't.
What, recently?
Just ever, like with diagnoses and...
Oh, yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah. Okay. So in lieu of that, right? Whenever as a teenager, Josh would say things, and I knew it was because of that. I would have just almost like it was Tourette's. Like, it wasn't coming from him emotionally. It was coming from, he didn't mean it. And I think that also really helped.
Actually, you saying that clicks in some ways for me too, like dealing with a family member who has like alcoholism or narcissism. It's not necessarily them that's saying the thing, it's the addiction or it's the disorder or whatever that is saying it, and having that approach might be a really healthy way to set boundaries within the person, of be like, you could still love that person, and that person who's saying or doing that thing, it might not be them, it's this other thing they're dealing with that's talking.
Yeah, but the interesting thing about that, I think, is there is a limit, right? So for me, so with BPD, the people that are impacted the most are the people that spend the most time with you. So I think that's why the strongest phases that I've ever had in my relationship with my mum in particular have been when I was living abroad. So I wasn't with her. I mean, to be fair, I barely spoke to my mum when I was living in Dubai in particular. She made the least effort with me. But our relationship got much, much better while I was away because I wasn't spending that much time with her. And so she wasn't subjected to the
That's really interesting.
intensity of the BPD. And likewise with Bella, the people that spend the most time with me are the most impacted. And in lieu of that, the most impacted person in my life at the moment is Savita. And I think we've had lots of conversations about boundaries and how she said exactly what Bella just said about how, you know, when those incidents happen, when the explosions, blow ups, whatever happen, they are very, very few and far between now because I'm going through therapy for it and whatever. It's getting much, much better. But when they do happen, she just has to take a step back and go, it's his BPD. He still loves me. He doesn't love me any less. But I think it's really difficult for people. Obviously, it was really difficult for my whole family when I was growing up with them. And it's really difficult for Savita because I think I've said very recently to you, Sasha, that she's a very, very like hypersensitive person. And so I think it's really difficult for her to draw those boundaries and to draw that line between BPD and Josh. And so that's why I'm going through therapy for it and have been for a couple of months now. And it's making a huge impact. But it's an interesting point because yeah, it's a very new thing, but it's DBT, so specifically for BPD. But yeah, so it's an interesting point because you can pull that line, but I think if it gets too much, it's really hard to do that. And then in my case, for example, you know, it's on me to do that work. And I think the same could be said for your family members, Sasha.
I'm curious because I don't know if I know this because what age were you diagnosed with BPD?
So I was only diagnosed with BPD
Late.
3 years ago. I want to say 2021 because I think it was the Christmas that I came back from Dubai. I had a enormous explosion on Christmas Eve. So pretty much exactly 3 years ago. And a massive explosion at my mum. And
Was that Christmas?
I don't know which one you're talking about, but I think it was, yeah.
Oh, what a
Yeah,
crap
okay,
was.
we can, yeah. But so just focus on
wasn't just
Christmas
Josh.
Eve and then we can explain. But
Okay.
I had this huge explosion and I just ended up breaking because my mum was like, I don't want to ever talk to you again. This was Christmas Eve. Like, literally, we were about to go to bed. And I just broke down and I told her, I was like, I've just gone off and seen a psychiatrist myself because I had suspicions and I've just been diagnosed. And then she suddenly was like, yeah, it all makes sense. So yeah, about 3 years, almost to the day.
Okay. Interesting. It all makes sense based on what you went through as a kid and all that. Like, it makes sense. Also
It
interesting.
made everything make sense. And I think that actually for his family member, definitely this is how I felt. It was, I think for a really long time, Josh had been searching for what the diagnosis was. And it didn't always explain things that he did. Like ADHD, sure, there's symptom overlap. And so that explains some things. But at the end of the day, it was something that kind of explained absolutely everything that was going on. And I think when you've got an explanation for it, it makes you feel like, okay, when he's going through outbursts or things that this might cause, you no longer feel like it's your fault. or like you've done something. And I'm not just talking about Josh, I'm talking about anyone that goes through this illness, and it needs to be treated seriously. And it does feel better for you and also those around you that there is an explanation for it. And I won't go into it, but with my sister, I think that there's something there. I don't know what that is, and it could just be very extreme ADHD. But sometimes my sister flips out in a way that isn't normal for her age. And I think, okay, well, it's clearly not her. It's something there, like neurological, that she's going through. And I think that it helps to tell yourself that and remind yourself of that. Okay, this isn't me. I haven't caused this.
Yeah. It's an interesting point. God, this conversation's gone in so many different directions
That's
from the
okay.
initial question.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Tangents are good. And I don't even know if we need to like how do you prioritize your mental health or some shit like that? I don't know. Like
Yeah, I feel like we've probably both answered this question a couple of times.
a million times. Let's
yeah.
just get into the
Mhm.
meat. Do we care? Let's just move on.
I only
Like
care
that-
about Bella's answer.
this is what happened when I did my podcast with you, Sasha, when we just spoke about Josh the whole time.
Literally. No, honestly, I think the best
Always the main character.
always. I just feel like the best podcasts are ones that are just natural conversations where it's not like question, answer, because sometimes those are so dry and boring. And this is all about having real conversation. And that's the whole point. But
Yeah.
to get into like the meat of everything, Bella, like how have you been? I don't think we've had a real chat since April or so. How have you been? Like what areas of life are going well? What areas of life are needing some attention right now? What's your
Yeah.
vibe? What's happening?
So yeah, life's been really good in terms of, obviously I took a big risk coming out here to LA to pursue my dreams, as Mickey Mouse would put it. But things have been amazing in that sense. In my career, I did my tax return, and my mum and I figured out two big things in the tax return. Firstly, I've made almost quadruple what I've ever made in a year. So that's just gone to show me that I'm doing the right thing. And my mum, it showed her that I can be an actor. And she's finally acknowledged that. Because my mum's a classic Jewish mum, and she's always, aren't you? What else can you be doing? I'm like, okay, when are you going to acknowledge what I'm actually doing already? So that's one thing that's been going well as my career. And I'm in the pre-launch stage, but it's been part of my 5-year plan to start a production company. I always wanted to do that by the time I really turned 30 or when I was 30, but I thought if not now, when? And I have got the trademark approved, and I've got the website and the domain and the name and everything. And I've started my production company. I haven't officially announced it yet to anyone because I'm finding partners, but that's another really big thing that I've always wanted to achieve. And so I'm really excited about that. I've also always wanted to make a feature film because obviously I'm a screenwriter. I've always wanted one of my feature films to come to life, and I now have 3 that are being made. So they're in pre-production, which is really exciting. Then I'm working super hard, the most on the one about Josh, because that's the one that's really big budget. It needs to be right. And it's definitely been, this is a tangent, but it's definitely been a challenge because it's a lot harder to write a story about someone that you actually know rather than just being able to make it up. So it's now a combination, but I've had loads of really good advice. Anyway, career is going really well. Relationship is also going really well. I am in a relationship with an angel who is amazing, and I love him very much. And he
You
can hear
have
me
to
right
say
now.
that because he's in the room.
He's-
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's there. He just made you
If
breakfast.
he wasn't in the room, I'd be like, guys, got to do something about the relationship. But that's also really great because you guys obviously both know this. I had been through it and didn't ever think I'd find someone like Caesar. So that makes me really happy every day. And it really impacts your mental health when you're in a good relationship. It just means you're like permanently happy. You just permanently feel like you're going to be okay. So that's been really good. Yeah, I would say that what's lacking is my physical and mental health. I've not been so focused on because I focus so much on my career that I forget about sleeping and having days off. And I ended up getting myself really ill this past 2 weeks now. I've had a really bad cold and I've just been really sick, which is one of the reasons I slept in today. So I hope you feel bad, Josh. But yeah, I what I do is I drive myself to burnout, and then my body forces me it like makes me ill. So it's now you have to have a day off. And I'm like, okay, I'll have a day off, but then I'll still do laptop work. But then I have like brain fog because I'm so ill, and then I can't do anything. So I've been forced to have a couple days off, which I hate, but is so important. So clearly I don't prioritize my physical health. And then, yeah, we spoke about my mental health because that's been more stuff to do with that I've needed to get over. But I also just wanted a general therapist because I also just really struggle being away from my family, which is one thing, because it's not like when I came to LA, I wasn't running away from anything. I was just pursuing another thing. I wanted to be here rather than leave London, if that makes sense.
Right.
And my mom has also been going on a trip with me this past year, a guilt trip. It's all she talks about now, and it really, really gets to me. It's so hard because I just feel permanently guilty about being here because of
Yeah.
I know how much she hates it. So there's that. That's probably the biggest challenge in my life right now is the health stuff in every area.
It's interesting because before you got on, we were chatting about taking days off, and Josh is like, do you even know how to do nothing? No, I don't know how to do nothing. Like I was saying before yeah, go ahead.
She literally said to me, what does doing nothing mean? Because I said I love to just do nothing on my Sundays. I literally just, Sunday is a day for nothing. She's like, but what does that mean? Like, what does that look
how do you
like?
do nothing? Like today's a lazy Sunday for me, and I showed Josh my to-do list and like the amount of shit I did today, and I was like, this is like my nothing Sunday. I'm just doing my to-do list. Like what is nothing? What does that mean? So I'm definitely in the same ballpark as you, Bella, where I don't know what that's like. And I think it's who was I was talking to somebody about this, and like the amount of serotonin that, or maybe it's is it serotonin? When you're running and you get that, it's endorphins, I think.
Endorphins.
Yeah. The endorphins I feel when I get through work and like when I feel accomplished and like I do something difficult, like I think I'm addicted to that. And it's interesting thinking about like the different types of pleasure chemicals, if that's like dopamine or if that's serotonin or endorphins or is that oxytocin? No. Yeah. And getting like fills of that. And part of me wonders, this is like tangenting, but like this is me tangenting just out of nowhere, but I wonder if my like lack of oxytocin, I'm just trying to fill in with serotonin or endorphins or something. Regardless, tangenting, sorry. I'm like running on very little sleep and jet lag. I'm curious because both of you started therapy around the same time. Bella, how do you feel like it's going?
Okay, so fun fact, I signed up this weekend, so I was supposed to start this weekend. So I can't answer that yet.
Okay.
But it already feels like the moment I booked the therapist, because I found someone that's actually like really perfect for what I'm experiencing mentally. And the moment I signed up for it, I just suddenly felt excitement. And I was like, that's interesting. I'm like really excited about starting therapy. I mean, I've got my poor friends and boyfriend. I probably need a therapist because I just rant to them usually. But yeah, I think even the idea of starting it has already made me feel good because I'm like, okay, I'm finally doing something about it. And what Caesar's said to me for a while is you're always talking about your physical health and stuff, and you need to start treating your mental health like your physical, like I always say, like your physical health. And think of paying for therapy like paying for an acting class. Like, if you think about the wheel of life, if I'm paying for stuff in the career section to grow my career, then I should be paying for stuff in the health section as well. And that's really important. And I don't sleep very well and I'm always tired. And that's 100% to do with a lot of the stuff that's been going on mentally. Yeah, that's not that I've started therapy yet. Maybe we can jump on another podcast session when I have. But yeah, I think I'm just really proud of myself that I'm finally doing something about it. And because I kept using financial excuses, but actually it's too important because if I'm spending money on other stupid stuff, then I should spend money on this.
Yeah. My mum's always said to me, what's more important than your mental health? If you're not spending on your mental health and not looking after your mental health, then nothing else matters, right? If your mental health is gone and you're feeling sad or clogged up in your head, like you can't do anything else. Your brain controls everything, right? Everything you do every move you make, every feeling you feel, every emotion you feel, it controls everything. So if your mental health isn't there, then it paralyzes you. And so therapy is really, really important. I realized that very recently. I think my mum said that for the longest time. Savita started saying it to me recently, and I was like, yeah, but it's like a lot of money every month, and I don't want to spend that money.
That's literally what I said.
I'd rather spend it on drugs and raves. No, I'm joking. Not the drugs, just the soft drugs. That's also a joke. But yeah, I'd rather spend that money elsewhere on things that I enjoy, because therapy to me is like a mundane thing. But I've been through now 2 phases of therapy. One when I was, I don't know, 20, 21 years old, and he was like an addiction therapist. And I loved going and talking to him. Every week I would go to his place and just chat for an hour or two. And I could just unload on him. And he didn't necessarily help me or give me any techniques. It was just like almost like a friend to talk to. And my girlfriend at the time, she got really overwhelmed because I was constantly unloading on her. And so I started seeing a therapist, and it just helped our relationship massively, and it helped my mental health, and it helped so many different areas, because suddenly my mental health was suddenly like an 8 or a 9 compared to a 3, 4, 5. And it unlocked all of these different areas and made everything better. And I feel like I'm going through very similar at the moment, although this is more specific therapy where they're actually teaching me techniques to deal with BPD. So yeah, therapy is very important, and that can't be understated.
Yeah, well, I started grief counseling last year and had a really good grief counselor, but I found myself talking about all these non-grief related things, and that's when I was like, oh, I should probably just get a real therapist, because there's clearly a lot of stuff I need to figure out.
It's like a workout class for your mind. And I think if we think about the wheel of life, we talked about this, it must have been a couple weeks ago, where the three that kind of was it the three that are like we don't want to say the most important, because I really do think that the wheel is like a wheel and that they're all equally important. But health, I'd say like physical and mental, and then your romantic relationship, and then your career. I feel like those are the ones that if those are going great, your baseline is just so much higher. And if those are not doing well, you're just in the fucking dumps. But I'd say like baseline is physical and mental health. If those two things are taken care of and prioritized, like everything else is easier to deal with. Everything else is a little bit smoother. If you don't have the energy from your physical health, and if you don't have the mindset from your mental health, like really, do you have anything at all?
Yeah. Because it's like, what's the point of all the other stuff if you're not happy? It's the baseline of it all.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah,
big time.
They all tie into each other. I think, especially for me, it's probably the same for most people, as we spoke about recently, Sasha, that if work isn't going well, because that's what you spend most of your day doing, most of your days, every day, if work's not going well, if you're not enjoying it, then everything else is going to suffer. Like, they all tie into each other, right? And that's the kind of benefit of the wheel of life, is that you can understand how they play into each other and what you can do to help every area of your life. So it's interesting. But I think it's important to talk about the situation with our mum, which Bella mentioned at the end of her tangent there, which is it's a really tricky one, because I see it firsthand, and I go and see my mum. I try and see her every Sunday or at least once a week, to maintain that relationship. And she says things to me about it. I think at her core, and I've said this to Bella before, she's just worried that Bella is never going to come back. And she saw it with her brother. So our uncle moved to New York when he was in his 20s. He fell in love. He had kids, and he never came back. And our grandma, his mum, our mum's mum, was just so sad about it and really, really desperately missed him. And I think my mum saw his development, and I think a large part of him regretted the move and felt very sad being where he was. And my mum just saw that firsthand. That's the only experience really, I guess, she's had of that. And she just doesn't want the same for Bella. But she portrays it in the wrong way. And in the nicest way possible, she does have a habit of doing that, of pushing buttons in the wrong way and trying to make people feel a bit guilty in some ways. And I'm not talking down on her at all. As I said, I've got a very good relationship with her at the moment, but it is a problem, and it's something that's really difficult to, I'm sure it's very difficult for Bella. Bella regularly calls me going, I think Mama hates me. And I'm like, no, 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 she's busy or whatever, but that's part of a long distance family relationship. So yeah, it is a tricky one. It is a tricky one.
Yeah,
Um,
and I've tried everything I can because I literally call her every day. Every single day I call her and I tell her I'm not Andrew, her brother. When Andrew moved to New York, internet didn't exist. Phone calls were expensive as hell. I can FaceTime her every day. She was telling me like Andrew was able to call grandma once every 2 weeks and it would be for 5 minutes because it's so expensive to call America, and then everyone would pass the phone to each other and say hi Andrew, and it was not a real relationship, whereas that's not what we have. And then also Andrew was working on Wall Street. He rarely got a chance to visit or see the family, and I'm really lucky in the sense that I'm able to work in a career where I can come see the family, all things aside, but I can come see the family when I want. Like I was home for 2 months in the summer and I'm coming back for Christmas, and I was just back for 2 weeks. And, I actually told my mum the longest I've gone without seeing you this year has been 3 months at a time. That's it. Oh, 3.5 months. But no, and obviously, and I think something that's really difficult for my mum to understand is that I feel equally as sad and guilty. She doesn't feel guilty, but I feel equally as sad and I miss my family as much. And just because I'm the one that's here, it doesn't mean that I miss her less than she misses me. And I think that it's hard for her to understand that because she's, yeah, but you're the one that left. And it's such a difficult situation because I've come here and I am doing really well in my career and things are going really well. And if I just came back because I felt bad about leaving my family, then would I resent my family if I was, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely, it's not like Josh and I can come up with a solution right now. But yeah, that's definitely been something that's been like a big struggle.
Have you guys sat down and actually had a conversation with her about how this like guilt tripping has really impacted you emotionally? And even like saying what you just said right now, where it's just because you're the one who left doesn't mean that you miss her any less. And honestly, my question too is, I don't know how often you saw her or talked to her when you were in London. Did you call her every single day or see her every single day when you were in London? Like you might be talking to her more now. You really might be.
well,
Yeah.
the point I was going to make actually is that first of all, Bella was living with her before
Oh.
they left, but also Bella, in my mind, has always been the golden child, right? I think until she decided to pursue a career in acting, she was the golden child at school and at university, and she went to a really good university while I was gambling. But I think Bella and my mum have always been like this, like really, really close, and definitely had the best relationship out of the three of us. I think Bella, and still does, I'm sure, sees my mum as a best friend, and vice versa. And so again, it's going back to the conversation about grief. I think my mum is grieving, and she has lost a major, major part of her life. Someone that she saw every day and were like they were besties. And so that, I think it's just she's grieving, and people, as we said, grieve in different ways and go through the different phases of grief, which is an interesting point actually.
It's interesting because the stage of guilt, it's not something that she's feeling. She's just making me feel guilty.
Yeah.
But have you had a conversation with her and told her all of this, like very...
Oh, so many times. We've
Okay.
had so many fights about it because every time I try to talk to her about it, we end up not speaking for a week. I have this joke with Josh because it's the same pattern, because we don't speak for a week and then she'll reply to me in the family group chat and that's like her saying, I'm speaking to you now. And then I always end up calling her to break the silence, which sucks. She's my mum.
Yeah.
But that is the pattern. I'm really trying. And I don't know what to do about the whole thing. It's like definitely a difficult situation. But yeah, when I was in London, I lived with her, except when I was at university, then I didn't. But then I do what Josh is doing and I would come every weekend. Did I call her every day? I don't think I called her every day when I wasn't living at home. No, I definitely call her more now. But again, yeah, I was like pretty much living with her. Yeah, tough. I don't really know what.
I think the other thing is, I was just thinking about our dad, and he has, I think, always had a good relationship, especially with Bella and I. Cheska, I think the divorce happened at a bad time for his relationship with Cheska. I still think they have a reasonable relationship these days, and he makes a good effort to maintain that. But I think it's interesting seeing the difference in approach, and I don't know how often Bella, how often do you speak to Dad, for example?
It's so funny because it's such a massive difference with my dad. Like, my dad and I can literally go 2 weeks without talking, and it doesn't matter. Like, he doesn't care and I don't mind. And then we'll FaceTime and have a massive catch up. And then occasionally it will text, but it's so different with my dad. Like, yeah.
It's very different, but he doesn't. I don't think he's particularly worried about your situation staying in LA. I think he just wants ultimately what's best for you, and and that's always been the way with our dad. Actually, is he always just supports what we want to do. I've always felt that with me in terms of me pursuing different jobs and different paths and having different ideas. He's always been very supportive of that, like blindly supportive. And so I think he just wants what's best for us. Like if we think
Yeah,
that
it's
this
very
is best,
big
I
difference.
mean, he does also worry a lot, and so he will put his input in. But there is a big difference. But then I think that's probably because, again, it's a very different dynamic to the relationship.
And I think the thing that I find unfair is that when Josh was living in Dubai, my mum, as far as I know, did not give him such a hard time about being in Dubai. And none of us knew if Josh was going to stay in Dubai forever or whether he would be there temporarily. I knew that I definitely wanted him to come back. And when he did come back, I like cried and jumped in the pool fully clothed and hugged him. He surprised us in the pool. It was like a
Yeah,
whole
for
thing.
context, I was in the pool. She didn't just
He was
jump in the
he
pool
was in
out
the
of
pool. I
excitement.
didn't just like something Willow would do when she's excited, like
Yeah.
go and jump in the pool.
Willow is their
For no
dog, by
reason.
the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, our dog. But yeah, I think, but obviously, yes, when you went to Dubai, your relationship wasn't the same as the relationship that I currently have with her. And the moment I told her, hey, I want to get a visa to work in America, her reaction even back then was, okay, I'm going to lose you then because you're going to go out there and you're going to fall in love with someone and you're going to stay forever. But I've told her this and I've told Caesar this. I didn't come here for Caesar. I didn't know he existed. And if he still didn't exist, I'd still be here because my career is going really well here. And I don't think a lot of people fully who aren't in the acting industry understand how acting works. But being successful as an actor doesn't mean you have to be Margot Robbie. If you're making a living from acting and if you're doing in LA, they call it a working actor. So if you're constantly working, you're great. You're in a good place. You're in a good position. I don't care about being famous. I'm not doing this to be famous. I'm doing this because I love doing it. And so if I'm able to do it, that's all I really care about. And it was going well in London, but LA is just like a whole other world of opportunities. And I've said this to my mom and I've said this to Caesar and I've said this to the rest of my family. I don't know what's going to happen in my life in the next 5 years. I don't know because I want to have a family. And I don't know if I'm going to want to be acting then or how acting's going to be then or if I want to just be in the industry or if I want to be in LA. I don't know. But all I know is right now I am really happy here. And yeah, being made to feel guilty is definitely, and if she listened to this podcast, which she probably won't, but if she did, it's nothing I haven't said to her. But then I even feel guilty talking about her making me feel guilty because I'm like, oh yeah, but I get why she does it. And it's like a freaking circle. I don't know.
It's a spiral. And it's interesting talking about the difference between your parents' approach and just based on like your mom's history, it sounds like this is really like a much deeper trigger for her because of what happened with her brother, and like it's almost like a projection of what's happening based on her past experience with her family. So it makes sense why she feels so strongly about it. And you guys did live together. To have that kind of very, very, very close relationship and then to have it go completely the opposite way is like a very stark, very dramatic change. And as far as masterminding it goes or whatever, I'm not sure. I'm not sure the best like way to approach it because at the end of the day, like you are happy and you're doing what you're doing what you love, and you do talk to your mom every day and you have communicated it with her. And well, at that point, what else can you do to to lessen it? Is there a way to, I don't know, I think it's something we talked about in a past episode with Adam, maybe being away from, like, living far away from your family. Is there a way to fill in the other love languages beyond just talking? Is there a way to send gifts or do like a virtual family day or something? Is there other ways to show that you're caring and thinking about them? I don't know. And it's a difficult thing to think about and difficult thing to be challenged with. And it's not something I deal with. I haven't lived at home in almost 10 years at this point, and I've never gotten grief from my parents about it. So it's like a new world for me, but I don't know.
How often do you see your parents?
It's varied depending on where I've lived. This year has been the longest I've gone without seeing them, but that's because I've been traveling full time. And I think I've only seen my parents this year. I've seen my dad twice, and I've seen my mom. Both of my parents 2 times outside of, I've seen them both 3 times. The longest we went was like 5. The longest I went with my mom was 5 months. I guess it was like the same with my dad too. Yeah, longest is about 5 months or so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen my parents 3 times already this year, and I'm in LA and they're in London. I've been trying to tell my mom, like, that's a lot. And also one of those times was 2 months, and I'm the only, sorry Josh, but I'm the only one of her children that helped her move house. I flew back to do that. I was just there a couple of weeks ago to do that, and I'm really doing everything I can to show my mom how much I care and how much I love her. And yeah, it's true. I actually have a lot of friends who live away from home, especially friends at university. My best friend from university sees her parents, I think, only at Christmas. Yes, I am really close with my family, and I really, really miss my family. But I also really look forward to seeing them when I do. And I think I'm also really good at keeping up communication with you guys.
Yeah. Oh yeah, too much almost.
I call Josh like whenever I'm in the car, and then I've got like a long drive.
Oh my God.
And he's always out, and he's what? The other day he was like, I'm making dinner.
Yeah, but I think yes, that is too much, and that needs to go down a little bit. But to go back to the other thing, I think an interesting point here is about something my mum keeps exaggerating recently, and it's about me as well, because I think she's really trying. I mean, I think in her head there's a slight possibility that I might move to India. I don't see that as a possibility. Yeah, I don't see that as a possibility at the moment. I have to say that quietly because Savita's in the next room. But yeah, I don't think that's a possibility, and she knows that. But I think my mum sees that there's a possibility, and she's scared that it could happen. Because obviously with Bella gone to LA, and so she keeps saying to me, now that she's moved to this amazing new house, I don't know if I've shown you, Sasha, it's incredible house.
Not the house
Like
that I saw in
Saltburn.
July.
No, it's a new one. She's moved out of London now.
Okay.
And it's amazing. I'll send you a link to like some photos and stuff. It's incredible.
Okay.
But now she's moved there, and she keeps saying to me, she keeps like saying, I want to build a tree house for when you guys have kids, and they can. And I can't wait for the big family Christmases here with all the grandkids. And she has
And
this
that's going to
vision.
happen. All of that's going to
Yeah,
happen.
of course. But I think she has this vision that she's going to be missing out. And this is something she's always said, is that I think it may not seem it, Bella, but she is happy you pursuing your career, especially if it's successful. And she actually said to me recently that she said, not to me, and she's saying it to other people as well, you're doing really well out there. Much better than she expected. Much better than any of us expected, with the lack of talent.
Yeah. Josh told me you're going to be home in a month.
Yeah. No, but she said you're doing better than she thought, and you're making a go of it, and she's happy for that. So I think she's happy for you pursuing a career there. I think what scares her is having kids there, which again I think is a very real possibility, especially with Caesar. And that she will never get to see her grandchildren. She's seen it with her, I don't know what it is, a great niece, maybe. So our cousins in the States have now had kids. There's 3 of them now. And personally, I've met one of them when she was a couple of weeks old. And now she's, 6 or 7 years old. And there's 2 other kids that I haven't met. I think she's really scared that you're going to have kids and she can't be flying to LA. you know, every couple of months. It's just too much of a commitment, especially as
She
she
has no
gets older.
plans to come here, so don't worry about
Yeah.
that one.
No, but I'm saying she doesn't see that as an option regularly, and so she's going to miss her grandchildren growing up, and that's one of, as a mother, I think one of the things that a mother would look forward to the most is being there for the grandchildren, and I think that's the biggest fear is for her. I think
No, I
that's
know. She's told me that. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm going to say something really brutal. And I thought about it a week or so ago, maybe long, I don't know. And I never thought I'd say it out loud because it's really brutal. And it wasn't even it's not even necessarily something I believe. It's just something that came to me. And it's not even necessarily in relation to this. When you have kids, they become your new purpose, right? And then depending on what you're doing with your career, that purpose can change. But then your kids grow up and they're no longer responsible for giving you purpose. And I think that that is what my mum is really struggling with, because I think that
I feel like there's two types of parents, okay? I feel like there are the type of parents who see the children as an extension of themselves and like a extension of themselves, and a parent who sees their child as an individual where it's their job to let them, to like push them to use their own wings and to go. And sometimes we have parents who want both. Like your mom like wants you to have the career and wants you to fly your wings and grow, but still there's like the kind of extension of herself and that extension of her own dream that like lives within you. And I don't know, it's interesting because at the same time it's, why is your mom like that committed to London? That because her kids might all go to different places. Maybe they'll all end up in the States. Maybe they'll all end up back in London. Maybe you guys will all end up in different places. She has 3 kids. Come on. They're like statistically, really, are all the kids going to stay at one place? And I'm wondering, like, for her, I think it'd be more of a question of, does it have to stay? Does it have to look like the vision that you saw in your head where it has to be London, it has to be there? Or could it look like a world where you, like, I don't know if you, I know you know Steph, obviously you know Steph, duh. Steph's grandma travels from kid's house to kid's house. And, like, she spends 4 months at this house, 4 months at this house, 4 months at this house, 4 months at this house. And, like, moves. Like, it doesn't have to look like this one specific vision, but that's more of a question for her than you guys.
It is true, and I think that goes on to my solution from my perspective, which is adaptability on both sides. I think you have to, or acceptance on both sides. I think there has to become a point in the near future where you start to accept that this is how she feels, and you just get on with your life and don't let it bother you, even though it's easier said than done because of your relationship with her. But on the flip side, she also has to accept it at some point. She can't be bitter about it and in denial and refusing to accept it for the rest of her life. It's still fairly fresh, and there's going to come a point where she has to accept it and just has to adapt, you know, whether that means saying that you're dead to her, or that was a joke, or whether that means just something like what Sasha said about Steph's grandma, just a flexible solution. And she's going to have to at some point. If
There's
you end
3
up
of you
staying in LA.
guys. Come on. And life's
Yeah.
going to change all the time. You guys are going to change locations and change things and change this and that. Come on.
You're also in your mid-20s and you're going through an exciting phase of your life, and your 20s is for experiencing new things and learning and making mistakes. And your 20s is the time to be doing this
Yeah.
and to spread your wings and see if you can fly. And so you don't know if you're going to be in LA forever, and she doesn't know that. And she just has to accept it while it's happening, that you're spreading your wings and flying away from the nest, potentially temporarily, but potentially forever.
But nothing is certain. Yeah, nothing is certain, and that's okay. And like, I think Josh is completely right. I think it's adaptability and radical acceptance on both sides. But thanks so much for coming on. We love you so much. I'm sure Josh doesn't love you, but I do. We love you guys so much. We'll catch you guys next week on Mastermind Moments. Bye.
Bye.
So we lost audio, but what I said at the end of that is it's not our responsibility to give our parents purpose. And I think that that's a really hard pill to swallow, because I feel really guilty saying that. But that if the reality at the end of our day, we'd have to chase our own dreams.
We hope you enjoyed this episode.
Don't forget to subscribe. Leave us a review and follow along on social media.
If you would like us to help you mastermind something in your life, please send us a message.
We'll see you next week on the Mastermind Moments podcast.